Welcome everyone this evening, and ask all in attendance if you would shut off any of your electronics, please. And welcome all, and looking for conflict of interest among any of the council members with the agenda tonight. No, thank you very much. Looking for the adoption of the published agenda for Monday, November the 16th. Councillor Snively, Councillor Bondi, any questions? All in favor? Sorry.
Through your worship, I would like to add the deletion of the delegation request of Mr. Parrish. He's unable to make the meeting this evening. He will be at a subsequent meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Bjorkman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to add a notice of motion.
Okay. Do we have any others? All in favor of the motion? Motion carries.
Item 4, adoption of minutes, October 26, 2015, special council meeting.
Moved by Councillor Vogt, supported by Councillor Caxero. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
Item B, October 30th, 2015, special council meeting.
Moved by Councillor Caxero, supported by Councillor Bondi. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
Item C, November 2nd, 2015, special council meeting.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Malaj, supported by Councillor Caxero. Any questions? All in favor of the motion? Motion carries.
Item D, November 2nd, 2015, regular council meeting.
Moved by Councillor Caxero, supported by Councillor Bjorkman. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
Item E, November 10th, 2015, special council meeting to discuss industrial wind farms.
Moved by Councillor Vogt, supported by Councillor Bjorkman. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
And item F, November 10th, 2015, special council meeting for the presentation of the water wastewater rate study and water financial plan.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Malaj, supported by Councillor Caxero. Questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
Item 5, under public presentations, the first item A has been deferred. The second item is item B, Essex Centre BIA, regarding the pavilion and the parkland at Essex train station.
This time I welcome the BIA Chair, Mrs. Bjorkman. What is it, the beautiful or the lovely? The lovely. Welcome, and you got 5 minutes. You're welcome.
Thank you. I don't think I'll need 5 minutes.
Look at your purple button in there, and
It is on. Okay? Bring it close. Better? Okay. Thank you for allowing me to make my presentation tonight. Over the past several years, the Essex Centre BIA has put money aside for a large community project. We would like to propose a joint pavilion project for the Heritage Garden Park. This pavilion could be used for farmers markets, concerts, picnics, etc. Our vision is to have a large open structure as well as public washroom facilities. The BIA has up to $150,000 to build the structure and would like to request that the balance of the town's beautification funds from the 2015 budget be dedicated to this project. We have been working with administration since July to identify a signature project for the BIA. It is understood that this project will not move ahead until the town and the BIA agree upon a design. And we hope to start in spring of 2016. Thank you.
Councillor Snively?
Through your worship, I'm pretty proud of you. $150,000. Good for you people. Very, very good. How much money is left in the beautification fund?
Mrs. Hunter?
Through your worship, based on the estimate that Jeff Watson has provided for what's been spent, it looks like we have about 70,000 left.
That's it, Councillor? Go ahead.
Through your worship, we didn't, there's no pricing yet on what it's going to cost.
The estimated cost with the Stemsky-Kelly street plan is $150,000.
150. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Malash? Oh, and then Councillor Vokes.
Thank you, through your worship. You mentioned washrooms. Is the washrooms included in that $150,000?
No, they're not.
Okay.
No.
So I like the idea, the whole concept. I agree that this would be a great signature project. But I don't know if you're asking for us to share in the cost of the pavilion. It sounds like you're not at this point in time, that you just like the pavilion for us to say yes, to move forward with the pavilion.
Right, and just to dedicate the funds to that pavilion.
That $150,000.
The remainder of the $70,000 is the remainder.
Okay. But it's only going to cost $150, so,
That's without the washrooms, and that's no infrastructure done.
okay. So I think we still need to do some investigation on what the costs would be, because there may be other monies that are going to be needed. I'm not sure if 75,000, I know we've done washrooms at other locations. They can be quite expensive.
And we're not looking to have those washrooms completed if it takes 2 phases,
Sure,
we can do that also.
sure, absolutely. So what I would like to do, what I would personally like to do, I don't want to say tonight that we're actually, I agree with it in principle, but I would like administration to take a look at it and come back to us with a report on, yes, this is something that's doable, and we believe that this is the correct sizing of that structure, because they've given us a rough estimate of the house, how big it should be,
Right.
but maybe it's not suitable. Maybe we should be going larger, or I don't know about the location and all that kind of thing, but I would like to see something back, a general report from our administration before we actually say, yes, absolutely, 100%, let's move forward, let's start moving forward on it right now. But I absolutely, in principle, totally agree with this, and I, too, would express the same sentiments as Councillor Snively, that very proud of the BIA that they have that kind of money that they can offer to partnership with the town. That's a great partnership. Thank you.
And to Deputy Mayor Malash, Mr. Phillips, I think, has some information for you.
Thank you, through you, your worship. Just for clarification, my understanding is that the chair's ask tonight of council is to simply to secure the monies that are set up in the 2015 budget. We have been, administration has been closely working with members of the BIA and the board. I know Jeff Watson's had many a conversation on this, but their concerns right now, I think, if I understand correctly, Mrs. Bjorkman's request tonight is to ensure that the beautification monies that were set up in 2015 are retained by the town towards this project, if I understand you correctly.
Correct, yes.
Richard? Okay. Councillor Vokes and then Councillor Texera.
Thank you, Worship. We're not inventing the wheel here, and that's what Marianne is obviously very clearly saying. There's 70,000, they got 150,000. We don't have to reinvent the wheel in terms of reports and more stuff from administration and more whatever. We got a conceptual drawing. In terms of the conceptual drawing that everybody in the world has seen at this point, if I could turn to Jeff, what was the tentative cost if tomorrow we put shovel to the ground and did that conceptual drawing? How much would that be? Just a simple how much?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, for the pavilion itself, we were looking at about $250,000 with the pad, with electrification.
location with the services being extended to it.
Thank you. So we're looking at 250,000 to do the conceptual drawing that we told everybody in the municipality far and wide, this is what we're doing. And then we had an application or grant out there that fell through the cracks. But now we have people, and I see two ladies right there, who have worked their backside off for this community. I see businesses in this town who have worked their backsides off for this community. I see the community at whole getting behind an area and a project like nothing else before, and the only thing in Memrich I can reflect on would be the construction of the Essex Arena when the community got behind it. We just had an event last week where there were hundreds, if not thousands of people there at that stone. So now we got a total of working with Mary Ann and her group. We got a total of $220,000 without even taking the checkbook out. Now we need another $30,000 to put shovel to the ground to get a project, as Jeff was saying, that we spent already thousands of dollars to get in design. And now we're all kind of taking the needle to, well, we'd really like to get started in 2016, but we better take a look at it. We've looked at it. Not only have we looked at it, we've designed it. Not only have we designed it, we've had the community saying, where is it? So now we got a lady in a group who wants to help, like these ladies in that group did, and now we're going to question the integrity of, or the process. I encourage council to simply say, if we got to throw in another 30,000, because I don't want to talk about the 184 we approved tonight, because I just sat in that room tonight and said, if I could get $184,000 for the downtown corridor, you wouldn't know it. Now we need 250,000. We got 220. We need another 30. We should be telling that lady, we'll get you that 30 and we'll start tomorrow. That's what we should be saying to her in good governance, in a proactive approach, and I'll leave it at that. The rest, that's my position, Mary Ann. We'll start tomorrow and I'll get you 30 grand. And you ladies too, by the way. And I'll leave it at that. I'm interested to see what the rest of council is going to say now.
Councillor Caxero.
Through your worship, what I'd like to mention is with regards to bathrooms, seeing as that really wasn't in the original plan or it hadn't been set up yet. This past year when we were at AMO, and the mayor and I believe our CEO could speak to this, kind of a neat idea, and I think it might be an appropriate place if we were going to trial this in our municipality. I believe Heritage Park would be a neat place to try it. It's like a self-cleaning bathroom. It's basically a shell that's brought in. It's all enclosed. What happens is every time someone walks out, the door will lock for I think 15 seconds, and the toilet area gets sanitized, so that there is never any cleanup. So and so it's unisex, first of all, because if a man uses the bathroom and happens not to be very neat, that's not to worry because it gets cleaned right after he uses the bathroom. The toilet paper, all that stuff can be replenished from an outside channel that's enclosed within the building, but you don't have to go into the bathroom to do it. It's from behind. It can be monitored to know whether or not things need to be replenished, such as soap and all that kind of stuff, plus the cleaning supplies. And then every so many uses, it actually shuts down for, and I forget what the period of time is, and it cleans the whole bathroom, the walls, everything. Mirrors are not breakable. Like vandalizing wise, it's kind of vandal-proof almost, so to speak. And I believe if you look at the cost, because when we talk about staffing to go and clean and to replenish things, and you add those costs in, it probably is competitive with just building a bathroom and doing it that way. So just something maybe to consider moving forward when this does come to fruition. Bathroom-wise, maybe we could take a look at those self-cleaning bathrooms.
Councillor Bjorkman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mrs. Bjorkman.
Scored two.
Again, just to go back to what it is we're looking at here. The project that the BIA is bringing forward, they're looking for right now is just that we are prepared to commit to the project. And the issue with the funding for 2015, we all know we have challenges in every budget moving forward, and this budget as well. So it's a matter of making sure that the project that they can do with their group can access the funds that were already set aside for downtown beautification this year. That's the goal, is to set that so that it is there, and they can go back to the members and say, yep, this is what we have. We now have a budget, because as you say, there isn't necessarily the length of it, that isn't there yet, but here is our dollar. This is what we've got to spend. Now we can size the project to the funds available. So I think that's basic. That's really what they're after this evening. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Malash.
Thank you, through your worship. Questions directed to Mr. Watson. So do we have a finalized conceptual plan that we've approved through council, or is this still in the conceptual stages?
Through Mr. Mayor, no, we don't. We have been working with the BIA on a design reflecting sort of the railway theme that was adopted by council as part of this park plan. And so we got a cost estimate from actually the same company that has built the gazebo down in Colchester, a very solid structure. And that has given us an idea of the approximate cost. Mr. Sweet has been looking at costs for the services, and that's an ongoing effort right now. So we're at the point now where we have to formalize the concept plan, and then we have to do basically a request for proposals for architectural review and design. So we're at the stage where we have to get a true design, working design for the facility right now.
Okay, thank you. And what I was saying is just that. It's not that I'm saying I'm not for the project. Councillor Vokes was trying to make it sound like as if I wasn't for the project, but I am. Yeah, well, it sounded like it. Yeah. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
But I am entirely for the project. I think it's great. But I just believe that administration has to take a look at this first and has to come back with us on something. But I agree that I would like to see those beautification funds put aside for this project as well, secured for that, and move forward from there. We'll see in the 2016 budget. Maybe, hopefully, they can come back with some costs, some true costs, so that we know what we've got to set aside in the 2016 budget. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Vokes.
So when the time is right, I'm going to put a motion for it, please.
Okay. Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, through your worship. I wanted to reiterate again, without spending too much time on it, but Jeff Watson has been working very closely with the BIA on this project. We looked at a number of initiatives over the course of this last summer with the BIA, and I know that their association and many of the businesses in Essex were wanting to move forward with some initiatives. They've been sitting on some monies for a while, and as Councillor Bjorkman just spoke as well, that they want to formalize the concept plan, get that working together. But I'm looking at their delegation form, and it very clearly says that the final design is to be agreed upon by both parties. And I think that we're getting ahead of ourselves. I think if we're going to be making motions or trying to move or adopt a program, we're still working on the planning stages. We've got a concept, but we don't have engineered plans right now for a facility or a building or where the services are going to go or anything else. And I think it's incumbent upon administration to bring back to council a plan that shows how that area is going to get built out, the Heritage Gardens area. Where we put the pavilion, or where the BIA would like the pavilion to go, has to be at the subject of council and has to be at the approval of council. And we have it, just in response to Councillor Caxero's point as well, that information about those washroom facilities was shared. We've talked about them. We're looking at those as optional aspects, whether they're tied to that project or whether they'd be located somewhere else. The overall plan, if you recall, the Stemsky plan incorporated an auditorium type of thing, or a band shell, music shelter, that type of thing, washrooms, a market structure, a lot of soft landscaping and other things to complement what's already there in terms of the Spitfire and the Heritage Gardens, the Heritage Gardens which have been there for a long time. So there's a number of elements to it, and I think it's incumbent that council gets the final say on what that thing will look like. But tonight, if I understand again correctly, was a matter of asking, please secure the funds for this year. Don't just throw them into the general surplus. They have every intent of spending those on this project as a partnership with the town, and I applaud them for that. There were some other projects that they looked at, and administration actually kind of said, listen, this is something that I think has bigger bang for the buck and creates a destination in Essex Centre downtown. And I think that that's a key element. So again, I applaud them for it, but I think what they're asking tonight is simply your concurrence to secure those funds, which we have done in past. That's something that Donna has done with any surplus monies that were left over from their account, was that we would hold on to them. Thank you.
Councillor Snively?
I don't want to say too much. Russ said exactly what I was going to say. I think the BIA is here tonight, just make sure that we secure those beautification funds, and like Deputy Mayor Malash said the same thing. So I'm all in favor of securing them funds for this project. It's a great project, and we're not that far away in dollar-wise. So thank you.
Anything further? Councillor Vokes?
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Malash, I want to make sure everybody understands that I agree you were supporting the project. And it's important for people to understand that. Not at any given time did I take it. I apologize to you if that come across that you were challenging the project. I just questioned the process that was going to flow out to hinder the project from starting. That's all. So with that being said, I'm going to put a motion forward that we move the current $70,000, plus we consider another $30,000 from the 2016 budget, combined with the $150,000 from the BIA, for a total of $250,000 for the 2016 Spitfire/Heritage Park development to start in the spring of 2016. And when I say start, that means even up to design, formulating, whatever it takes to get it started. So at the end of it, if we can get another $30,000, council, from this year's budget, we can walk out with $250,000 and do everything we intended to do. So I'll leave it at that. If anybody wants to add an addendum or change it, and I'm going to ask for a recorded vote also, please.
We need a seconder. Councillor Caxero, in a question. Councillor Caxero.
Through your worship, certainly I'll second the motion. I was going to go as far to say, because, and Larry just kind of whispered in my ear, we don't know the total price of the project yet. It may need more than $30,000. I would think that if council budgets the same amount for beautification this coming budget year, it may take another $50,000 or $70,000. I kind of, and thinking in my mind, if the BIA didn't want to earmark this money for this project, was the town still going to do this project on their own? And I think the answer is yes. So therefore, I believe that, I'd like to think that it should be a partnership in that sense. If it was something that the town wasn't going to look at and they were trying to push this, maybe for the businesses or whatever, that would be a different dynamic. But this was something the town was embracing already, and we were going to go ahead and do it anyway. At some point in time, it was just the money, the funds, because we didn't get the funding. So I think it's, I envy the fact that this end of our municipality in Ward 1 has a BIA, and unfortunately I think some of our issues down in Harrow is the fact that it's a chamber and operates differently, and there isn't the funds available there. And sometimes they have a lot of challenges when it comes to that, and this is a perfect example of what a BIA can do. And this is great. It'll move projects forward. So I think it's okay to have the motion that way, but I would suggest that it potentially could be more than $30,000 out of next year's budget.
Respond?
Well, you're gonna get, you'll have the last say, sir, as the mover of the motion. Everyone's gonna get one shot at it, so if you're ready, anyone? Councillor Snively.
To clarify, Councillor Vokes, is he referring to taking money out of the 215 budget or the 216 budget? 216 budget, correct?
My motion talks to both.
Yeah.
It talks to the $70,000 that we currently have, and my intent is, and I can appreciate what Councillor Caxero's saying, if there's opportunity to get more, or we go to the table and discover ways of enhancing even more, fantastic. But my intent is to reassure coming out of here tonight with other opportunities, that we walk out and the public at large knows that this council, working with the BIA, has secured $250,000 for the development of that to start in 2016.
But, Councillor Vokes, so you're saying, in other words, 216 budget, it could come out of two? That's what you're saying, correct?
30 out of 216,
Okay,
and the current 70,
okay, yeah, okay.
for a total of 250,000.
But it could be more coming out of the 216 budget.
If we follow the lead of Councillor Caxero, tentatively it could be more, but we're not gonna guarantee that to anybody, because we know how challenging our budget deliberations are.
Correct, I would support that, Councillor Vokes.
And I have a question to our treasurer. I do believe we should be careful committing 2016 budget monies at this time, right or wrong. Are we able to even do that?
Through you, Your Worship, typically what we do is refer it to the budget, and it's discussed as part of the budget deliberations.
To make a commitment tonight,
No, if I,
can we do that? What Councillor Vokes' motion is saying?
not asking.
Through you, Your Worship, certainly you can do it, but you got to remember, we have not seen the complete 2016 budget. We do not know where we sit. You just have to know that you're committing dollars that may take away from another project that you may have in mind, that's all.
Okay, Councillor Vokes.
If I could, thank you. People, I'll slow down. I'm not telling you or asking council to approve $30,000. My motion says the key word being consider. And if you would have listened to the motion, it said that. It said was to consider $30,000 during the 2016 budget. Okay? So we're not approving $30,000 tonight. We're considering it. Either way, we walk out with $220,000 as they want.
Thank you. Anything further to the motion?
Councillor Vokes? Councillor Bjorkman?
Support?
Councillor Caxero?
Support.
Councillor Snively?
Support.
Deputy Mayor Malash?
Support?
Mayor McDermott?
Support.
Councillor Bondi? Support. With a recorded vote of 7 in favor and none opposed, the motion is carried.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Madam
Mayor.
Chair.
Item 7, reports from administration, Building Department Report 2015-010, which is the October 2015 building report.
Movership by Councillor Caxero and Deputy Mayor Malash. Supports. Any questions? Councillor Bondi.
If I may, through you, Mr. Chair, I know we don't have the building department here, but perhaps Mr. Watson can help. Since the reduction in development fees in Ward 4, are we seeing an increased uptake in new residential homes?
To you, Mr. Mayor, no.
Thank you. All in favor of the motion? No. All in favor of the motion? Motion carries.
Item B, Planning Department Report 2015-30, with reference to the Canadian Transfer Essex Waste Depot rezoning for 14028 Pinkerton Side Road.
Moved by Councillor Caxero, supported by Deputy Mayor Malash. Any questions? Councillor Bondi.
Sorry, I have to find my page. This is Are we limiting organics here? Is that what we're on? So, okay, because I saw in the, but exclusive of a motor vehicle salvage operation and outdoor open air storage of organics. Are we eliminating the storage of organics there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, two issues were raised by council at the November 2nd meeting, public meeting. One was, as you know, it was the motor vehicle salvage operation, which is not permitted now under this bylaw, and the outdoor storage of organic materials is not permitted under this bylaw. So in other words, they're allowed to transfer it and to dispose of it internally only. No open air storage is allowed under this bylaw.
Okay, thank you. I do have one more question.
Go ahead.
With a nod of the head, is that your understanding of the organics? How you were, okay, all right. I'm also just not completely convinced yet, and so I won't be supporting the recommendation that we should completely exclude motor vehicle salvage operations. I know none of us really want to go there. Nobody wants a junkyard, but I think in terms of a business plan for this particular business, a small motor vehicle salvage operation is what they're seeing, and I really believe in reducing, reusing, recycling. And I know it's off of number 3 highway, and everybody sees number 3 highway, but everybody sees many urban centers, much more than number 3 highway. So right now I won't be supporting the bylaw.
You, Councillor Vokes?
Thank you, Worship. In terms of the salvage yard, it was very clear that I was challenging, I guess, the vehicle salvage yard, but we always talk about it, and Jeff seemed to somewhat, after I left here the other night, Jeff kind of seemed to suggest some reassurances that there was maybe ways to make that work, or in terms of protecting the public at large as it relates to environmental concerns that I certainly have and still have today. And so I would like, as Councillor Bondi is suggesting, and I don't want to delay what you're waiting to hear in terms of approval, but I would like to see a report from our planner, Jeff, short in duration and not long in detail, that talks about how we can arrest any environmental concerns as it relates to a salvage yard. I know Councillor Caxero was kind of firm on his point that there could be opportunities to do this. So I'm not so sure that at this place in time, I want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So I would entertain the idea of a report that would allow for a fair and equitable reconsideration on the position once we have all the indicators in place, whether it would, what it would do in terms of the environment that all the residents live in as it relates to a salvage yard. That would be my suggestion. I would really like to see that happen, because we just really, and I'm going to take ownership, a decision was made based on case history of sitting in this chair, but maybe some things have changed in terms of environmental controls. Because when we had first talked about that, and I want to talk about Essex Auto Records, when we talked about moving them out there, I believe that was in my early term of council, which was back in 2005 or 6 maybe, when those discussions started. So I would like something that talks to 2015 in terms of environmental considerations and protecting the public at large as it relates to a salvage yard. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Caxero?
Through your worship, I think the difficulty or the challenge that especially councilors that have been around or council members that have been around since 2003, I'll say, that went through that issue in 2005 or 6. I believe it was 2006, late in 2006, because I think I was just leaving when that issue was kind of hot. It's not so much, there was rules in place that they were supposed to follow also. Unfortunately, they weren't following the rules. And I don't think anybody necessarily was questioning whether or not the proponent was going to follow any rules that we put in place. And I think we could put rules in place to have things appear the way we'd like them to appear. It's what happens if the gentleman sells the property? Well, I mean, we certainly could make decisions on the what if this happens with every decision we make, but I don't think that's fair to the current people. And that was kind of my point. We certainly haven't had a bad history with this proponent. So I believe it was, I thought, a good idea to give them the opportunity and just put measures in place to protect ourselves from the possibility of issues arising. Could it be that 10 years from now, if this proponent sells the property, somebody buys it, and they aren't the same type of person, that we could run into problems? Absolutely. But I don't think that would be a good reason to deny something like this at this point in time. I like the idea of maybe getting those parameters on paper so that we can see how we go about this. I think we kind of got a bit of that at that meeting, but to see it on paper in a report form, and then I think it's still.
Here, Deputy Mayor Malash.
Thank you, through your worship. There are measures you can take. It's whether they're followed or not, obviously. I mean, we had Essex Auto Wreckers. We've already got those measurements in place. We already have rules for salvage vehicle operations in place. We've already got a bylaw for that. But it's whether they're conformed to or whether they're not. We gave the instruction that the wrecked autos were to not be stacked any higher than the fenced area, or whether they were not to be outside of the fenced area. And it ended up costing the town of Essex residents tens, not thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees to try and have a stop put to it, and we never could. And we did it multiple times to try and have the operation stopped. I don't want to put the Essex residents in that position again. So the only way that we can ensure that we're not going to put Essex residents in a position where they're going to have to spend perhaps tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees to try and stop an operation that would perhaps not follow the bylaw is to say that we are not going to allow salvage vehicle operations in the town of Essex. So that's what I'm putting forward, and I believe that we should stick with this. It's not something that when they originally planned to be in that location, that they had come to us for. This is something in addition to at this point in time. And I believe for the benefit of the residents of the town of Essex, we should not be looking at increasing the number of salvage vehicle operations within the town of Essex. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Sir, Councillor Vokes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with you, Rich. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't think we should do anything to jeopardize the health and safety of the residents of Essex. And I want to reflect with you, because we shared council at the same time, is when we were asking Essex Auto Wreckers, because we had concerns of it being in the urban center, to relocate out into the county, where this gentleman is today, that we had, as you are suggesting, we had perimeters, policies, and procedures in place to protect the public at large. The problem was at that place and time is we weren't exercising or we weren't following them. Because we had the discussions that when that scrap yard, salvage yard, went out there, the first thing as a council that we immediately requested was an 18-inch retention wall with a collection system. So any runoff, any oils, any disbursements would be collected and not go into the environment and therefore damage the environment. So you're right. We had many of processes to secure the intent of the public. We just never exercised them. So as I'm asking, is that we have Jeff tell us in 2015 to make sure we protect ourselves from what you're talking about. You're 100% right, that we don't go through that based on what 2015 is telling us. And if 2015 tells us that there's still a jeopardy to the public at large, as the perimeters allow and as the environment today says, I'm not going to approve it. right? And I'm telling you right now, I won't approve it. So that's all I want to know. If council comes back and says to us, and for the record, their business isn't in the urban center like Essex Auto Wreckers was. It's out in the Pinkerton Side Road, out in the county, as everybody knows. It's not in the urban center. So that's just a point in principle I want to make.
Deputy Mayor Malash.
Through your worship, whether it's in Ward 1 or whether it's in Ward 2, I still have the same opinion. It's still unsightly if they don't follow by the rules. What I would like to do so that we can put this issue to bed tonight is maybe ask Mr. Watson right now for his opinion on this, rather than him having to go back. We're all about not trying to have them strike up an extra administrative reports. He could perhaps give us some idea right now on whether those bylaws could be easily broken by an additional salvage yard.
Okay, one more time, Councilor Vokes, and then I have Mr. Watson.
I appreciate what you're doing, Rich, but it makes me, and it's not about me, but it makes me hypocritical by doing a off-the-cuff, respectfully to Jeff, I say it as respectfully as I can, and to council, to just hear a verbal as what he knows right now. He could open the books tomorrow, he could search the internet, he could make the calls, he could put that, he never even told us about tonight, because we're really putting him on the spot to do that. I would prefer to wait, be a little more exercise on what is really out there, in definition of what we can and can't do, and let that document support our decision, and not just what he's trying to pull out of his files tonight to tell us, because he had no time to prepare. If we were to say to him, Jeff, tonight you're going to do a report for council on salvage vehicles, he would work on that for, I assume, a couple days. And so we're asking him to do it right now. I don't think that's a fair process.
You had your hand up, sir, before any of this happened, so go ahead, Mr.
Thank you,
Watson.
Mr. Mayor. Councilor Vokes, it is correct. It's a complex issue, and obviously the best control is not to allow it at all. I mean, that's quite straightforward. The question is, if you do allow it, then what are the odds of abuse? I actually, since the November 2nd meeting, I actually did look at the salvage yards in Windsor in that area, and I looked up the wrecker yard that you had talked about, and really it's a mixed bag. It's probably about 50-50 as far as good salvage wreckers are concerned and bad ones are concerned, and they're quite visible. And the reason why they're visible is because the bad ones basically leave cars outside of the storage area. In Windsor's bylaws, all salvage cars must be fully enclosed in a screened enclosure, which makes the cars invisible to the public. If you go out and look at several salvage yards, you'll find that that simply isn't the case. And you'll see them here as well as in Windsor and elsewhere. And because of that, it makes enforcement very difficult. And as I say, since the November 2nd meeting, I've looked at it more carefully, and I think I realize it's not an easy thing to do. It's a constant hassle to make sure that these operators are obeying the law. And as I say, the best option is probably not to permit them. Mr. Hanukkah, he doesn't deal with he deals with the disposal of car bodies, chassis. He doesn't deal with salvage of parts and materials from the cars. And so it's not affecting his operation as far as his present and future needs are concerned. And I think because of that, it's probably best not to permit it.
Anything further? I would just like to make one comment, like we're talking about when it used to be downtown and now it's out in the country, but it was in a settlement area, you know, when it was the old auto wreckers. And the area where these gentlemen's business is today, that is still a settlement area. So we're not talking about out in the sticks versus, you know, downtown Essex. They're both settlement areas, so it's the same thing in my mind. But anyways, if that's the end of it, we need something from someone to deal with this report. Deputy Mayor Malash. thought you did, but I checked with the clerk, and she said no. That's why I wasn't going to allow any second ones, but she told me we didn't have it. So the motion is exactly what we have here, sir. Any further questions to the motion? All in favor? Motion carries. Yes, sir. Everybody? Oh, so everyone voted that time. Oh. Oh. I thought you were saw your hand. Opposed? Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Item C, Planning Department Report Number 2015-29, with reference to SPG Media Sign Request.
Councilor Bjorkman moves, supported by Deputy Mayor Malash. With the question, Councilor Bjorkman.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. To Jeff, looking at where these, we're starting now to move into these billboards, is there an amount of space that we're going to look for between signs? I looked at where the 4 signs are going up right now. You've got them down Arner. Is there a standard that we're working to keep them separated?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that's correct. You'll see in the report there were a number of guidelines which council adopted when they adopted the sign bylaw. Billboards are not permitted as of right in the sign bylaw, and the reason for that is basically to have the matters taken to council for their consideration. One of the guidelines adopted by council was a 1-kilometer separation between billboards.
Okay. Anything further? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion carries.
Item D, Planning Department Report Number 2015-31, regarding the heritage designation for Tuffelmeyer-Snyder Cemetery.
Deputy Mayor Malash moves, supported by Councilor Snively. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
Item E, Corporate Services, Report Number Clerk 2015-012, regarding 2016 regular council meeting dates.
Councilor Bondi moves, supported by Councilor Bjorkman. Any questions? Councilor Caxero.
Through your worship, so we're not going to have only one meeting a month in July and August any further, it'll be 2. Okay.
Yes, sir. Any further? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Item 8, correspondence. The first one is an application by Jim Slickmore Booth for membership to the Accessibility Committee.
Councilor Bondi and Councilor Bjorkman. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
Item B is correspondence from Save the Nation regarding the Green Energy Act and non-willing host to renewable energy projects.
Bjorkman?
Give and support.
In support, okay. Supported by Deputy Mayor Malash. Questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
Item 9, committee meeting minutes, the October 14th meeting of the Arts, Culture, and Tourism Committee.
Moved by Councilor Caxero, supported by Councilor Votes. I was going to say Steve, but you beat him. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries.
Item 11, new business, Councilor Bondi, federal tax incentive to reduce food waste.
Councilor Bondi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week in the Herald News, there was an interesting article that I thought was kind of fitting to our municipality since we do host a landfill. And I sent an email, so I don't know if council and administration had a chance to read that article, and I'm not even sure who wrote the article, but I still thought it was interesting. And there's a lot of other big cities in Canada. The top 5 cities like Edmonton, Halifax, Ottawa, Toronto, Calgary have supported such an initiative. So, and I don't quite know exactly what the resolution is, but I still was interested in it. So what some of these bigger cities are doing to try to tackle food waste, because we all know food waste is 35 to 40% of everything that goes into the landfill, is they're passing resolutions to support a federal tax incentive to producers and retailers of edible food, so that those producers and retailers can give some of their edible food to food banks and people that actually need it and can use this food. So it came about through AMO and a National Zero Waste Council a couple of years ago in 2013, and they started brainstorming ideas on how to divert waste. So I don't know, maybe I thought perhaps we could look and see what the resolutions are from these other cities and get behind it and maybe even pass it along to county council, because we do host a landfill here. So organic waste, when it's thrown into the landfill, not only it costs our municipalities, but it produces a lot of greenhouse gas emissions too. So I don't know, it just caught my eye, and I really want to start thinking progressively in Essex about diversion, waste diversion. So this is, I don't know, we have a new federal government, perhaps they're progressive in diverting landfill amounts too. So there's just some interesting tidbits in here. Just research shows that a modest tax incentive could divert larger volumes of food away from landfills, helping Canadian cities further their efforts to prevent waste while also reducing greenhouse gas emissions and food insecurity. And we all want to do all of those things, so I thought it was something that we could support. Just looking for council's comments and seeing where we are with this.
Councillor Bjorkman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I read that article, and it's very good. It's a great way to encourage people to continue to compost and do that. And if they're going to work through it as a federal tax incentive, I think that's great as a town and as a county with a landfill that we're trying to protect as best we can to keep, as much trouble as we're having keeping other people out of our landfill, let alone if we can divert some of our own things away from that landfill. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Vokes?
So the question is, what would be the next step? Like, do we just hear it, and like, what do we do in terms of promoting it, pushing it, implementing it? Any consideration for that? Where does it go?
Councillor Bundy?
Thank you. If I may, we could do some more research and see what these other towns, what the resolutions came out of the other towns, like Edmonton, Halifax, Ottawa, and Toronto, or we could pass a general motion that the town of Essex supports a federal tax incentive, something along those lines. That's where I'm looking for feedback from council. Do we want to see what the other towns have done and kind of copy them and, bring this up to county council? I would like to see something done at the county level, something done with, perhaps the Essex Windsor Solid Waste Authority Board can, promote this too, and just really bring awareness that organic waste is 40% of everything we put into our landfill. And if locally we could, if locally we bring awareness to this, hopefully we can get some of our organizations thinking that, maybe they can lobby the government too, because everybody throws away organic food matter. That is, it's best before, not necessarily always bad after the date. That doesn't quite meet the standards for serving on a restaurant salad, but, I would eat it at home and you would eat it at home, but you wouldn't necessarily serve it at a restaurant. So what can we do with these materials, and how can we lobby the government to make these, to give value to these materials to people that can still eat them?
Councillor Vokes?
Thank you, Worship. So would the intent be of council, could we forward it to county council to get support from county council at a county council level, instead of just independently supported by us? And if so, could we make that a motion with a seconder?
We could do that, definitely. Oh, our clerk Cheryl.
Through you,
Mr. Phillip.
through your worship, I could check on the resolutions from these other cities and bring something back to council for the next council meeting to look at.
Phillips, and then Councillor Caxero.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. I think it is wise to send it back to administration to bring back a report or further study, appreciating what Councillor Bondi's bringing to the table, but some of the conversation that I heard concerns me in that we are one of the only communities in the county currently that does a curbside collection for organics. Other communities have already moved away from that or have never got involved in the green box program with the loaders. There's other ways of reducing refuse or reducing materials entering your landfill sites. Putting bag limits are things that I'm familiar with in other communities that I've worked in, where putting a bag limit on and saying that you cannot dispose of any more than 1 or 2 containers of waste. I look up and down my street and it's phenomenal what people are. I was amazed when I moved to this community, to be blunt, to what we can get rid of just by putting it at curbside, and it's all taken care of, and it's on the back of the taxpayer. I think putting some onus back on homeowners to say, listen, you can do some composting in your own backyard, but I know all of our clippings, all of my leaves, everything else can be put out to the curbside, and it goes, and that's creating methane. And we're encouraging that today as a community, not discouraging it. And so I think the report coming back to you with kind of a full scale thing. I agree with what the clerk is saying in terms of investigating what the other communities are doing in terms of the tax incentive. But there's a number of steps that we could be taking long before we go and encourage the federal government to layer on another tax.
Councillor Caxero.
Through your worship, I know part of the article mentions edible food and whatnot. Some of the challenges, I think, with that is a lot of the help centers won't take prepared food. It's just a policy. So certainly that may be one of the things that needs to be looked at as long as it's coming not from just somebody's kitchen, but if it's coming from a restaurant or something, maybe there could be some rules laxed, because I know it has a lot to do with them being sued if, you know, they don't know how it was prepared and all that kind of stuff. But if it's coming out of a restaurant, obviously the restaurant's preparing food for the public. So that could be something that we maybe support and push to have maybe changed. Back when I was in my first term of council, I did mention bag tags, and I almost got crucified, so at a public meeting. So I mean, I'm certainly a proponent of it. I think there's always ways of diverting, and pocketbook is usually one way that people will divert fairly quickly. I know there's always the argument that we're going to find stuff in ditches and all that kind of stuff, but that's, I guess, the growing pains of changing and moving in a direction that we feel fit. So I like our CEO's idea of maybe coming back with a full scope report that will kind of look at that whole picture, and maybe there'll be a number of motions that we could make at that point to help the cause, because it is true. If we can divert that 40% or a lot of that 40%, that would change things a lot at the landfill, along with the effect of creating those gases that we don't want.
Thank you, sir. Anything further? Councillor Bondi.
Perfect. I love the discussions. I love talking recycling and diversion, so it's good to open the discussion here. Just an example, at Harrow Public School, there is a healthy vegetable program, healthy fruits and vegetable program, and they often get donations from local farmers and stuff. So if, I was just thinking, if the farmer is donating apples that are not, everybody wants the perfect peach, everybody wants the perfect apple when they go to the supermarket. We won't buy it if it has a blemish on it. So if that farmer that's donating these food items gets a little bit of a tax incentive and the food goes to the children or families that need it, then that's a goal. But I would love to talk bag limits and organics and anything else we're willing to talk about. So I appreciate staff's time in bringing back a report for this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 12, notices of motion. Councillor Bjorkman.
Mr. Brewer.
Thank you, your chair. The next meeting, in order to bring our council records in line, in light of information with regards to the limits of council powers, I'm bringing a notice of motion to rescind Resolution R15-10-468 from the meeting dated October 5th of 2015.
Thank you, sir.
Item 13, bylaws. Bylaw number 1468, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of agreement for an integrity commissioner between the Corporation of the Town of Essex and Robert J. Swayze, barrister and solicitor.
Moved by Councillor Caxero, supported by Deputy Mayor Meloche. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Item B, bylaw number 1466, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the November 16th, 2015 regular council meeting.
Moved by Councillor Bondi, supported by Councillor Bjorkman. Any questions? Councillor Caxero. Oh, no. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 14 for the adjournment.
Okay. Councillor Caxero.
Through your worship to Councillor Vokes, if you want, the fact that you were opposed to the one motion, it can be recorded if you ask for it to be recorded, otherwise it won't be, if you want it recorded. No? Okay. Just wanted to make...
Just before I ask for adjournment, welcome, Lauren. We haven't seen you for a couple of meetings, nor Ms. Davison. Just hope everything's been good with you. You have any comment to make tonight before we leave? About anything, Harrow High, anything good? You don't have to. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out. Looking for adjournment? Councillor Bondi, Councillor Bjorkman. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.